Hello everyone and welcome to a new video. MC-Mura here, and in today's video I wanted to talk to you guys about bad matchups and how you can get better at fighting bad matchups. And in general, let's start first by describing what is a matchup. A matchup is pretty much which character has the upper hand in this fight. Let's say we're talking about a Cody versus a Cammy matchup like the one you're just seeing right now. These two characters are being used by two players of very high yet equal skill level, right? So it's like it's a fair fight. If these two players played, for example, 10 games, which of them are likely to win more? Which character has the upper hand, right? And the bad matchup is a matchup where your character is at a disadvantage or it's an uphill battle pretty much, right? And the first step in actually doing well in a bad matchup is understanding why is it a bad matchup to begin with. And this will differ from one person to the other. Something I noticed many of the players of the privileged characters gonna say is that they have very easy and very dominant strategies. Here for example, Cammy cannot really dive kick on Cody, right? Because Cody have his V skill 1. He can use it to react to the dive kick and stop it. And you'll have many Cammy players tell you that this is a bad matchup for Cammy because their dominant strategy, their default strategy that is so dominant that they can abuse against most of the characters can't really be run on Cody, right? But in my opinion, this doesn't constitute a bad matchup. This isn't enough to make a matchup bad. There have to be more depth to it than that. It's a very shallow way of looking at it. Because if you can't run one strategy against a character, it doesn't mean that all of the other strategies are completely out of the window. If you really look into it and start to check this out, you will see that Cammy have many other tools. She have regular jumps, right? So you don't have to just dive kick, there are regular jumps. Let's play a ground game. Cammy have a much better walk speed and much better mobility. The dive kicks are there. You might not use them every time, but using them sparingly is actually not bad. Use your mobility. She have a really good pokes like standing medium kick. Cammy also have standing heavy punch, which is a sick whiff punish. She have amazing pressure once up close. She actually have much better defense than Cody because she have a 3 frame and the reversal. She have much better anti-airs because her back medium punch and her DPs. So Cammy can certainly 100% hold her own on the ground against Cody, right? Just because you can't freely dive kick on Cody doesn't make it a bad matchup, right? Yes, maybe your dominant strategies that you used all the time, maybe this one doesn't work. So you have to change how you are fighting a little bit or how to approach the fight a little bit, but this doesn't actually make it a bad matchup, right? But let's get back to the topic at hand. Let's say that we are fighting in a bad matchup. Here is another example of a match that is deemed by Guile players to be difficult because they can just sit back and throw booms, right? Like this is the dominant strategy with Guile. And they can just sit back there and throw booms. So hey, Minette is a bad matchup. She can fight Guile on the ground. She doesn't have to jump. I can't do anything. Minette is bad. Please help me send the police for Minette, right? I've seen this actually being said by Guile players. Even some guys of the high strengths honestly legit told me that Guile loses to Minette and Poison because they can fight him on the ground. He can just run back and throw booms. But the thing about matchups is that the matchup advantage changes depending on the range. If you are from, for example, this dash distance, the booms are actually gonna be very difficult for Minette to deal with. Have you considered other strategies like throwing your V skill 2? What can Minette do to deal with it, right? How about if you try to abuse different strategies like walking forward, like jumping, throwing EX booms from unreactable ranges, etc, etc, etc. Typically, the character have an entire toolkit. I understand that many of the characters who are really strong have very easy and very dominant strategy, right? But that doesn't mean that the character have to be played in that same way only, right? And again, if you're, for example, fighting from this mid-range, it's actually pretty difficult for Minette. You have to consider the risk versus reward. Guile have much better normals from this angle. The jumpings could be very threatening. Minette actually doesn't have the best defensive options, etc, etc, etc. What can she do? Maybe she will slide, but again this could be very punishable by Guile. As you can see, it was -6. So your matchup advantage from this range is actually really good. Yes, your dominant strategy may not work, but you have other strategies that could actually be very successful. And understanding your opponent character and what you can do and where you can stand is a very big deal in doing well in the matchup. Here, for example, we have Poison and Cody, and as you know, I play both of these characters as my mains, and actually Poison is one of Cody's worst matchups. But because I understand how both of these characters function, where are their weaknesses, I actually have a very strong record with Cody versus other Poisons. I understand where on the screen I can stand that will be difficult for Poison to deal with. So for example, let's check this out. I'm gonna maintain a range that is just outside of Poison's standing heavy punch range. And this range will actually be very difficult for Poison to deal with because her standing heavy punch is gonna whiff and the standing heavy kick doesn't reach. The standing heavy punch does not reach from this distance, it relies on whiff punishing, right? So if I'm not pressing, as you can see, she doesn't reach me, I have to extend for her to reach. And this normal is actually whiff punishable. I can use my standing medium punch here to whiff punish this attack and get some really high damage on Poison. So me standing there is a very advantageous range. It's like a spot on the screen that I can have really good time at. And as you can see, obviously jumping is very dangerous as well because this button have a lot of recovery. I can then get the knockdown and the Oki. She doesn't have a reversal, so I can run my offense on her. And just understanding the simple spacing where your character is better will go a super long way in doing well in a matchup. Another thing, if you are fighting a bad matchup, you have to understand where are the openings, what flow charts my opponents like to do. For example, many Poison players like to do standing medium kick into medium raid, as you can see, but Cody can actually combat this. He can interrupt this with light kick into Ruffian. Maybe you will do light kick into Zonk, right? So you have other options. Explore where are the gaps. Where can you interrupt? What are the habits of my opponents? Where do I have to stand on the screen? These are some very helpful tools. Honestly, bad matchups are not bad because you don't have options. Bad matchups are bad because the Cody, for example, in this instance, the Cody have to know more about Poison than Poison have to know about Cody. And this is what makes it kinda hard, right? You have to gather knowledge. But one of these things that could really help you is if you actually play the matchup from the other side. Like I tell you, I play both of these characters, so I actually played it as Poison and fought another Cody's. And you get to see what Cody can do that might annoy you. You will understand the mindset of the Poison player, right? What is Poison looking for? What can Cody can do to bother me? And understanding this can go a very long way in helping you getting better and getting better results at the game. I know this is very difficult. Not everyone can play multiple characters and get to play the matchup from all angles. It's a tall order to ask of someone, but hey, if you can't play the matchup from the other side, what I can really recommend is to at least watch pro player replays. See, for example, how are the best Cody's doing versus the best Poison. If you are a Guile player and you're struggling against Minette, what is Daigo doing against Sako? Watch Daigo versus Sako replay. See how he's playing it. What different strategies is he exploiting? All of this will help you and go a long way. And honestly, one final advice, and I know this might sound a bit weird, but hear me out on this one. Try to expand your skill set. Many players play different characters, but they play them in the exact same way. Try to play different characters of different archetypes, right? It will teach you so much about the games, and these strategies you will then be able to use in the different matchup. Let's take a look, for example, at a player like Daigo, right? Daigo is using Guile in ways that not many other players are doing. You don't see anyone really not always charging. You see him walking forward with punishing. He was doing stuff with guile that no other player were doing. And that's because he used to play Shoto characters. He used to play guile. He actually even played characters like Yan in Street Fighter 4. Sometimes Hugo, right? Completely different archetypes, completely different styles. I know players, for example, in Street Fighter 5 who play characters like Cammy and Thith. And it's like, if you play, what are you learning if you're playing Cammy and Thith? But they are the exact same thing. You're not learning anything new. While, for example, a player like Idom to me is super impressive. Characters like Poison and Laura, completely different archetypes, completely different fighting styles. This is a very impressive show of skill in my opinion. And learning different characters will allow you to learn different strategies. You will get better at playing the characters in a way that is not really just the dominant flowchart way, and that can go a long way honestly in helping you fight bad matchups. If you have enjoyed this video, please leave a like or a comment. I will be leaving a link to the Patreon page and the Discord page in the description below. Thank you very much for watching and stay safe.